Hi, this is Jenna Feldman, and this is my flipped lesson for ED 527. I created my project using PowerPoint and decided to use Screencast-O-Matic to add the audio. In my project, we're going to be talking about dividing fractions. To give you an outline of my project, we're going to start with the central focus, school culture, the actual lesson that I did, how I collected the data, a little comparison, and then what I would plan to do differently next time. I currently am teaching at Solon High School in Solon, North Dakota. It is a very small 7 through 12 high school. I currently teach the 7th and 8th grade math, and in the class that I did the flipped lesson with, I have 12 students enrolled. We are a Title I school. I serve 100% Native American students. The community that I work in, school is an important aspect to many members, but not the entire community. There have been some struggles with students taking school seriously, and I think a lot of that has to do with just kind of how the community has developed over the years. I am happy to say that we are seeing improvements though. One of the biggest issues that we see would be attendance. For example, out of the 12 students that are actually enrolled in the class, I have not had two actually attend school this entire trimester. I have had one student maybe attend a week of school, and then, like I said, it's hit or miss with kind of the majority of the rest. So on a daily, I expect to see 7 to 8 students in this class. The achievement level, it ranges. I have some students who are probably about a 5th grade level, and then I have some students who may be um, almost to the 7th grade level. We use a combination approach. We have found that to be beneficial for us in Solon. This class has 2 students on IEPs. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the access to technology. So in my classroom, I do have access to computers. I have 7 computers, so that works out nicely. But within the community, we can't depend on students having access to Wi-Fi or devices. There's many kids that actually will bring chargers to school so they could charge any devices that they would like to use at home in school. So we don't really depend nor expect our students to use technology outside of the classroom. So the central lesson, or I should say the central focus for the lesson is dividing fractions. To be exact, we're going to divide fractions by fractions, divide fractions and whole numbers, and then also divide mixed numbers. This is a 6th grade standard, which is to interpret and compute quotients of fractions and solve word problems involving division of fractions by fractions. Now, to actually create my lesson, I used the program that was featured in our notes, the Sophia software. I found this to be a very easy to use program, and if you would like to have the link to that, you just need to go ahead and just click right on the hyperlink right here where it says Dividing Fractions Tutorial. So if you were to click on that, it would bring you to the lesson. It was 5.4, Dividing Fractions and Mixed Numbers. The first thing I decided to do was make a to-do list for my students. So I gave them an introductory video, which is just the division of fractions, and it shows a nice model for them. Then they had to read over the key concepts and take notes in their interactive notebooks. Then there's, I provided 4 more videos, which I know is more than that was asked of, but one of them I put is that was not a requirement, so just in case they needed an extra example. If you read number 4, it was a self-check quiz. So that was just something built into the Sophia software. It was a quiz that I wanted to create just for my students. It wasn't for me to critique them on. Then after they took their self-check quiz, I kind of reminded them, you rewatch those videos if you need to. Then from there, they were going to do practice in their textbook. and then I had answers posted in my classroom so they could check their work. Then underneath that, of course, it says talk to Feldman if confused. That way we can get everything or anything that needed to be cleared up, cleared up. And then I had a couple practice rotations for them. And then the last but not least was a formative assessment. One of my favorite things to use right now is Socrative, and this one I put on there, this is for us, this is for them to show me what they know. And then I had decided to use Khan Academy for my videos. So here are a couple screenshots of the what I have on Sophia. So I went ahead and typed up the key concept. So we're going to use the reciprocals to divide, and then below I went ahead and provided notes for them. I also, this was the dividing fractions example, the first one that I wanted them to watch, and that was a Khan Academy video that I found on YouTube. Then I also know that a lot of my students might have forgotten what a reciprocal was, so I wanted to go ahead and add that in for them and give them kind of a little refresher in case they forgot what that concept was. So, like I said, I provided my students with a kind of a to-do list just because this was something that they've never done before, so I wanted to make sure that they knew what I expected of them. So I had them take their notes, and then you could see right here is the example of the informal self-assessment that I wanted them to do. Then they did a short book practice. I used Zap as a game practice where students work together to solve questions. They work with a partner, and it's more of a game format, and they really enjoyed that. And then, like I had said, I did my formal assessment using Socrative. To collect data, I went ahead and I took pictures of a couple of my students' work. In this first example here, I was able to kind of see that my student decided not to simplify before they multiplied. And so then they end up working with larger numbers, and then when it comes to simplifying, they get really frustrated. So we had been over, simplify before you multiply. That way your life is easier in the long run. So that was something I was able to look at and, realize that, hey, we're not doing that. I need to readdress that. Now, in this middle one, there's not much writing on it from me, or I should say there's not much feedback, but the student decided to stay for tutoring, and so I was able to really help her out. And if you could kind of see that we had circled some questions here for her to redo, and there's a lot of erasing going on. And so when I was going through her work with her, we figured out that she wasn't changing her mixed numbers into improper fractions the correct way. And so then that created a huge problem. And then on some of them, she wasn't multiplying by her reciprocal. And then in the last one, just what we had noticed a lot was she wasn't simplifying her improper fractions into mixed numbers. Another way I was able to collect data, and probably the best way, was using Socrative. And so this right away basically just showed me exactly what my students were missing. So this one right here, I had two students miss changing a mixed number into a reciprocal. Over here, they had the wrong numbers on top. We had a couple different things going on here, like this one just simply forgot to multiply, and then, or sorry, simplify. Then on number 7, you can see I had 12 over 1, 12 over 1, which they have the right answer, they just didn't simplify properly. But then when we get to 8 and 10, where we see a whole bunch of problems, is when we started to work with mixed numbers. So that was a huge indicator to me that, hey, we need to go back and look at some of these questions again with the mixed numbers. To determine the next steps for instruction, the first thing I had to do was basically see and ask myself, what do my students need? So after looking at some of their work, I noticed that we definitely needed to highlight simplifying before they multiply, but then also making sure, we can't have these improper fractions, and so we need to turn these into mixed numbers, as well as if we did have regular fractions, we need to make sure we're breaking them all the way down. Then, of course, there was those major red flags whenever we involved mixed numbers. So what I decided to do after that was kind of a whiteboard practice activity that we've done in my classroom quite a bit, and we just call it give or take. So my students are paired up and they basically just answer the question that I have on the board. If they get it right, then they get to either give themselves points or they can take them from another team. So it's a fun-natured game. The students are paired up, and I do my best to pair them up with someone who I think can help them out. And they get really into it. So it's fun to watch them learn, but also have some fun as well. And then another thing I like to do is I like to monitor the progress with our daily warm-ups. So when comparing the flipped lesson to a traditional lesson in my classroom, it was really nice to see how many students were engaged. Now, I'm not hesitant, but with this here, it was something new, so I was kind of expecting this, so it would be nice to see how it plays out in the long range. I did like having the variety of options because we kind of did have to go about it in a rotation manner. Then I really liked that I was able to help my students, and I also noticed that a lot of my students who were able to catch on a little bit more quickly were really able to work with their peers and help them as well. I like that this provides a resource for my students to refer back to. So, they have the videos, they have their notes, and so instead of asking me questions, there's something that I can refer them back to, like, hey, why don't you go watch example number 1 from your Sophia lesson? I also like the responsibility that it creates for the students. They are accountable for watching the videos and getting their work done, and it gives them some independence, but we also allowed for them to do some collaborative things as well. Overall, I think it was very beneficial to see the students doing this flipped method. And then if we click onto this next part here, what I would do next time. Now, a lot of this was completely new for my students, and so I think in order for this to be more beneficial for us, we'd have to start by incorporating these flipped concepts more often. And now I say incorporate because there's something I have to bring into my classroom and kind of train them on before I can expect them to do this on their own. And more or less, we just need to create that community of how this works. Overall, it was great to have more time to work with my students, and so this is definitely something that I would like to work on incorporating. But like I mentioned in the first 2 bullets, we kind of have to get them trained. A lot of my students I'd noticed had difficulties watching the videos and then being able to apply those skills. And I think it's because they're just not used to learning that way. And so I think if we could make the idea of a flipped classroom, more natural, that it would become more practical for our students. So right away, do I think they could handle more? Not necessarily, but I do think that they have the potential to easily gravitate towards making something like this beneficial. So I just wanted to say thank you for watching my presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed this assignment and creating a lesson for my classroom. I learned a whole bunch of new things on how to make this work for me and my students, and I'm looking forward to fine-tuning it and making it work on a more permanent basis. I don't really think I would have tried this unless this was an assignment. So once again, thank you.